Okay, so we're looking still at function notation. This is just how we work out some of the practice problems that you were given. So let's look at 8 through 16. Now, guys, looking at 8, it says g of 10. Which of these functions, the first one, the second one, the third one, or the first one, do we need to use? First, second, third, or fourth? We're going to use the first one. Why did you pick the first one, Jordan?
Because it's a G outside and the H should be a 10.
Right, so these, oops, I don't like that color. So, we got to look at the function name. The function name here is g, so we need to go the one that's also g. Now, this has a 10 on the inside of the parentheses. So does that mean it's an input or an output? You're right, it's an input. If it's an input, are we going to plug it in for x or in for g of x? In for x. So 10 is what we're going to substitute x with. So when we rewrite this, we will write g of 10 equals negative 3, very good, times 10, because we replace this 10 with this, we replace 10 in x plus 1. Do you notice how there's no longer an x here? Once we plug 10 in, we will not need x anymore. So there's nothing we can do with g of 10 because that's just what we call the function, so bring it down. Now what is negative 3 times 10?
Negative 30.
So we have negative 30 plus 1. So again, can't change g of 10, so bring it back down. And what is negative 30 plus 1?
Negative 29.
Negative 29, very good. So now that we've done that, that's all there is to do for this problem. We don't have to continue to do anything else. So let's go ahead and for 9 through 13, let's determine which function we're going to use. So on 9, this says f of 3. Are we going to use the first, second, third, or fourth function?
Wait, are you going to use the second?
We're going to use the second because that has an f and this one has an f.
The fourth is not an F. No, that's a G.
That's a j.
Oh my God.
Maybe you do need to sit the front. That's okay. Now let's look at the next one. We have h of negative 2. H of negative 2. Are we going to use the first, second, third, or fourth function for h of negative 2?
Use the third.
The third, because this one has an h and this one has an h. Let's look at j. And 11, let's look at j. So 11 gives us j of 7. Which function are we going to use? First, second, third, or fourth? Fourth, because they both have a j. Let's continue. The next one says h of negative 3. First, second, third, or fourth?
No, the third.
The third, because they both have an h. And now let's look at 13. It says g of negative 5. Are we going to use the first, second, third, or fourth?
First.
First. You know what? Let's go ahead and label the ones down here too. So if we're looking at 14, it says find x if g of x is equal to 16. So this one's a little different, but which function are we going to use? The first, second, third, or fourth?
First.
Why?
Because both got G.
Because both have g. Both are talking about g of x. Let's look at 15. 15 says find x if h of x is equal to negative 2. Are we going to use first, second, third, or fourth?
Third.
Third, because they're both talking about h. And lastly, let's look at 16. 16 says find x if f of x is equal to 23. So, which one are we going to use? First, second, third, or fourth?
Second.
Second, because they both have what letter?
F.
F. Very good. They both have an F. So, while we're looking at the 3 down here, let's go ahead and solve 16. Let's go ahead and solve 16. Now, 16 says find x if f of x is equal to 23. Now, did this one give us x? No. It says find x. We want x. So, one way I like to remember how to do these is this 23 on the inside of the parentheses. No, it's not on the inside of the parentheses, so it's an
Output.
right, it's an output. And if it's an output, we're going to put it on the outside. We're going to put it outside the equal sign. We will not replace x with it, and we will not keep the f tacked on. Those are a couple of things I've noticed. We will just do 23 is equal to, and what was the function for f of x?
3.
Just the x squared plus 7. So we'll have 23 is equal to x squared plus 7. So I need to solve for x here. What is going to be my first step in solving for x? We want to get rid of the 7. So this is a plus 7. How do I get rid of a plus 7?
Subtract 7 from both sides.
Yeah, subtract 7 from both sides. What is 23 minus 7?
Is it 16?
16, yeah. So I have 16 is equal to x squared. I now have an x squared. How do I get rid of an x squared?
Oh, square root.
Yeah, take the square root. So, sorry that's not a lot of room. But what is the square root of 16?
4.
Is it only 4?
Negative 4.
Yes, remember, the square root of any number is both positive and negative. So, go ahead and I want you to try 9 through 15 on your own real quick. Try 9 through 15. Talk about the rest of them. So, we already talked about which one's paired up with which. So, looking at 9, we are going to use f of x is equal to x squared plus 7 for this one. So, it gave me f of 3 for 9. It gave me f of 3. Did it give me an input or an output?
Input.
How do you know it's an input?
Because it's inside characters.
Right, so we have it inside the parentheses. So if it's on the inside, that means it is an input, and we will plug it in for x. So that means we should have f of 3 is equal to 3, I don't know why it started typing, but okay, 3 squared plus 7. What is 3 squared?
9.
So we don't change anything on the f of 3 side, just bring it down. So f of 3
Equals.
is equal to 9 plus 7. What is 9 plus 7?
16.
So f of 3 is equal to 16. And we're done with that one. Now let's look at 10. We already know which one it matched up with because they both have the same function name of h. So negative 2, is it an input or an output?
Input.
It's an input. Why, Jordan? Because it's on the inside of the parentheses. So if it's an input, does that make it an x or a y?
That's a Y. No, it's an X.
Makes it an x. So we are going, anywhere we see x and h of x is equal to 12 over x, we are going to plug in negative 2. So we have h of negative 2 is equal to 12 over negative 2. Can we simplify 12 over negative 2?
No. Yes, it's
Yes, what is 12 divided by negative 2?
negative 6.
Yes, so h of negative 2 is equal to negative 6. Negative 6. All right, let's move on to 7. We already said that, or let's move on to 11. We already said that this one will match up to j of x is equal to 2x plus 9 because they share the name j. So this one gave me j of 7. Jordan, is that an input? Is 7 an input or an output? Why is it an input? Right, because it's inside the parentheses. So if it's an input, is it an x or a y? It isn't x. So anywhere we see 7, we are going to plug, or anywhere we see x, we are going to plug in 7. So I have j of 7 is equal to 2 times 7 plus 9. What is 2 times 7?
14.
So j of 7 is equal to 14 plus 9. So j of 7 is equal to 23. All right, let's skip 12 and 13, and we'll go ahead and go over them. So 12, we already know, matches up to h. Negative 3, is it an input or an output? So is it an x or a y? X. So we're going to plug negative 3 in everywhere we see x. So h of negative 3 is equal to 12 over negative 3. What is 12 divided by negative 3?
Negative 4.
No, 4.
Positive 4. I mean.
Yeah, it's 4.
It's a positive over a negative, so it's going to be negative. It is h of negative 3 is equal to negative 4.
Wait, it was negative 4?
Yeah, I thought it was negatives.
Put negative 4 on my paper and I said positive.
I said it's food.
You got
No,
negative 4 on your
12 is positive, and we're dividing it by a negative 3, so it's going to be negative 4.
Oh, because it looked like, because that equal sign looked like it had a negative.
That happens. All right, now let's look at g, or 13, which is g of negative 5. So we know it's going to match up to this equation because they both have g in the name. So is negative 5 an input or an output?
It's an input.
It's an input. Why is it an input?
It's in the parentheses.
It's in the parentheses. So if it's an input, it's an x. So we have g of negative 5 is equal to negative 3 times, oh my gosh, I wrote that so bad.
I was looking at 14, that's why I was.
Negative 3 times 5.
Is equal to negative 3 times negative 5 plus 1. So g of negative 5, because we don't change this. And then what is negative 3 times negative 15? Negative 3 times negative 5.
15.
Positive 15. And what is 15 plus 1?
16.
So g of negative 5 is equal to 16. G of negative 5 is equal to 16. All right, now let's look at the next one. So it says find x if g of x is equal to 16. Now, they did not give us x, did they? They, in fact, told us to find it. So that means we need to plug in 16 for what? G of x. G of x. We will plug 16 in for the entirety of g of x. So it'll be 16 instead of g of x is equal to negative 3x plus 1. So now I just need to solve this like any normal equation.
Subtract 1 from both sides.
We start by subtracting 1 from both sides. What is 16 minus 1?
15.
15. So I'm left with 15 is equal to negative 3x. What do I do to get x by itself here? Divide by
Negative 3.
negative 3. What is 15 divided by negative 3?
Negative 5.
So x is equal to
Negative 5.
negative 5. All right, now let's do 15 because we're done here. 15, it says find x if h of x is equal to negative 2. Did it give me an x?
Yes.
Did it give me an x?
No, it did not.
No, it didn't. So since it didn't give me an x, I have nothing to plug in for x. Instead, it gave me h of x. Replace h of x with negative 2. Replace h of x with negative 2. So we will have negative 2 is equal to 12 over x because we're not replacing x. Is equal to 12 over x. Now, I need to solve this, but this one looks a little different than everyone else I've seen, right?
I had put 12 on negative 2.
No, you want to put it over x because we're not replacing x. Because was this on the inside of the parentheses? Was negative 2 on the inside of the parentheses?
That was-
No, so it's an output. So, but if I were to just put, because how can I write negative 2 as a fraction?
Yes.
Yes, by putting it over 1. So from here I can cross multiply. What is negative 2 times x? So I'm left with negative 2x is equal to, what is 1 times 12? 12. So it's equal to 12. What do I have to do to get x by itself? Divide by negative 2. Cancels out over here, and x is equal to negative 6. X is equal to negative 6. Very good. So, let's go ahead and look at how to find it. So that is how you find them on when you're just looking at a function. The next video will show you how to look at a graph. Now we are now I know it's recording. Okay, now we're going to look at finding the values when we are just looking at a graph and we are given like f of negative 4. So looking at this, let's figure this out. So f of negative 4, is negative 4 an input or an output? If it's an input because it's on the inside of the parentheses. Very good. So if it's an input, is it an x or a y? Very good, it's an x. So, and we said that when we're looking at these, it is an ordered pair, right?
Yes.
So ordered pairs are always written as x comma y. Which part of the ordered pair do I already have here, x or y?
X.
So yeah, so I have negative 4. So let's go find negative 4. Since it's an x, am I going to find it on my x-axis or my y-axis? X-axis. So let's go find negative 4 on my x-axis. Alright, here it is. Now, since I have an x, I'm looking for y. So am I going to go meet the curve up or down or left and right?
Left and right.
I'm looking for
Oh,
y.
you can go up and down.
Yeah, so we're going to draw a line to meet the curve up because that's where the curve was. If the curve was down, we'd draw the line to meet it down. But this one's up, so we're going to draw a line to meet the curve up. What is this point that we met the curve?
It's 2.
4, negative 4, comma,
2.
2. So my solution to 17 is negative 4, 2. Now let's look at 18. 18. So 18 says f of 0. Did they give me an input or an output? Because it's, right, they gave me an input because it's inside of the parentheses. So if it's an input, is it an x or a y? X. So let's go ahead and make my ordered pair. So which one did they give me, x or y? X. So let's put a 0 there. So let's go find 0 on my x-axis. It's right here. And were we looking for an x or a y when we have an x?
Y.
Since we're looking for a y, are we going to draw a line up or down? Up or down or left or right? Up and down. Now, if we were to draw a line all the way down, how many spots do I cross this line? 1. So this is the one spot that it is. What point is this? 0, 0. So my answer for 18 is 0, 0. Now let's look at 19. 19, we were given f of 3. Did they give me an input or an output? Input because it's inside the parentheses. So if it's an input, is it an x or a y? X. So let's go ahead and write my ordered pair. We have 3 in the x spot, comma, whatever that's going to be. So let's go find 3 on my x-axis. 1, 2, 3. Here it is. Am I going to draw my line to the left and right or up and down?
Up and down.
All right, let's draw a line all the way across and do it. So how many times does this one cross my curve?
1.
1, so about right here. Now this one's not perfect, but it crosses at about, I'm going to say negative 1.75. It crosses at about negative 1.75. So this point would be 3 comma negative 1.75. Alright, now let's look at f of negative 5. Let's look at number 20, f of negative 5. Okay, so is this an input or an output?
Input.
Input, very good. So if it's an input, is it an x or a y? X, very good. So since it's an x, we can write my ordered pair as, not x, but negative 5, comma, whatever. So let's go find negative 5 on my x-axis. Here it is. Am I going to draw my line up and down or left and right?
Up and down.
Up and down. Okay. How many times do we cross the curve at negative 5? Once. And what point is that?
0, 5, 0.
Negative 5, comma, 0. So my one solution is negative 5, comma, 0. All right, let's look at the next one. We were given f of x is equal to 2. Is 2 an input or an output?
Output.
It's an output. Why, Jordan?
So this outside the parentheses.
Very good. It's outside the parentheses, so it's an output. So if it's an output, is it an x or a y?
Y.
Y, very good. So since it's a y, are we going to find it on the x-axis or the y-axis?
So Y.
All right, let's go find 2 on the y-axis. 1, 2. Here it is. Now, when we were looking here, when we looked at 17 through 20, we looked for the y portion, right? So since we are looking for an x portion here, because my y is going to be what?
2.
2, are we going to go up and down or left and right?
It will be 0 and 2.
Hold on. Are we going to go up and down or left and right?
Up and, left and right, left and right.
Left and right. We're going to go left and right because we want to see where it crosses the curve. Where it crosses the curve. We want to know where this purple line meets the curve. I'm going to erase some of this because I notice it's starting to get a little messy. So since we had a y, we were looking for x. Which way do x's normally run? Which way does x run?
You go to
Left and right.
Left to right. So we had a y. So that means we needed to run left and right to find our x's. So let's see where this purple line crosses our curve. Hi,
Are you recording?
I was.
Sorry.
It's cool.
I have an important question.
For me?
Yes.
Cool.
How many good, awesome calculators do you have? Do you have a full set of new ones? Pretty new ones?
Not new ones, but I have some really good ones.
Okay. I got 12 new ones. I'm just trying to decide what to. So, I didn't know how big yours was. I thought I would check with you before I went to anything else. So, everyone else has pretty good.
He's really upset because that one has missing buttons. So,
But for the most part. So,
yeah,
Alright, I'll check with someone else.
cool.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Sorry about that. So, we run left and right. So, how many places does the purple line cross the curve?
2.
2. So, how many answers am I going to have?
2.
2. So, my first one, let's go from left to right. What's this first dot?
2. I mean,
Wait, that was like
What's the x value here?
negative 4.
Yeah, so this first one is negative 4, comma 2. So my first one is negative 4, comma 2. What's the next one? This one kind of ran in between 0 and negative 1, so we're just going to say it's like negative 0.75, comma 2. All right, let's look at one last one. We have f of x is equal to 0. F of x is equal to 0. So is this did they give me is 0 an input or an output? Output. So is it an x or a y?
Y.
A y, very good. So let's go find 0 on my y-axis. All right, here it is. Now we have a y. We need to find x. So if we need to find x, are we going to look left and right or up and down? left and right. So we need to draw a line going all the way through, going all the way left and all the way right. Now, how many places does my pink line touch the curve?
Twice.
Twice. One here and one here. So going left to right, what is my first pink where's my first pink dot? -5, comma, 0. What's my next pink dot?
0, 0.
0, 0. Very good. So that is kind of how we find these points on a graph. All right.